Hi guys, welcome back to The Law of One, the Raw Material, Book 2, Part 3. And in these next couple sessions are basically going to be all about sex and what sex means, sexual acts mean as you're going through the densities. The only couple things that I do want to iterate is the fact that Ra really refers to sexual acts and what sex means through the densities, through the chakra system. And Ra likes using the colors. He doesn't like using the numbers the way we refer to them because they're distorting, but the colors are always the same through the chakra systems. So right now we are in the green ray chakra, the body chakra, the heart chakra in 3D, in third density. And as we move through the chakra system, it really is the journey of the soul and what it means. And you get all the way to, indigo and, basically the seventh chakra or the violet chakra in, sixth and seventh density. So it does help to have the chakra centers image in front of you as Ra is talking about this, if you're not already familiar with the chakra systems. And the other thing I want to iterate is just the term that Ra uses as bisexual isn't what we normally think of bisexual. Bisexual to Ra just means male and female, both of them. We tend to think of bisexual as one person that likes both sexes, but that is not how Ra is using the word bisexual. He just says it as saying both male and female, talking about both of them at the same time, not their sexual orientation. So I just want to make that clear. Sometimes when you hear Ra talk about things like this, going into it, it just makes it easier to understand what he's talking about. Now, I think it really is interesting the way sex changes as you go through the densities, through fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh density, and what it means even as a wanderer who has reincarnated here in 3D from 6D, which we have a lot of wanderers on. So wait till the end where I start talking about that because I do have some personal insight for that. So let's get into it. Here is part 3 of The Law of One Raw Material.
The Law of One, Book 2, Session 31. February 25th, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner, I have a question that the instrument has asked me to ask. It reads, you speak of various types of energy blockages and transfers, positive and negative, that may take place due to participation in our sexual reproductive complex of actions. Could you please explain these blockages and energy transfers with emphasis upon what an individual who is seeking to be in accordance with the Law of One may positively do in this area? Is it possible for you to answer this question? Ra, I am Ra. It is partially possible, given the background we have laid. This is properly a more advanced question. Due to the specificity of the question, we may give a general answer. The first energy transfer is red ray. It is a random transfer having to do only with your reproductive system. The orange and the yellow ray attempts to have sexual intercourse create, firstly, a blockage if only one entity vibrates in this area, thus causing the entity vibrating sexually in this area to have a never-ending appetite for this activity. What these vibratory levels are seeking is green ray activity. There is the possibility of orange or yellow ray energy transfer, this being polarizing towards the negative, one being seen as object rather than other self, the other seeing itself as plunderer or master of the situation. In green ray there are two possibilities. Firstly, if both vibrate in green ray there will be a mutually strengthening energy transfer, the negative or female, as you call it, drawing the energy from the roots of the beingness through the energy centers, thus being physically revitalized. The positive, or male polarity, as it is deemed in your illusion, finding in its energy transfer an inspiration which satisfies and feeds the spirit portion of the body-mind-spirit complex, thus both being polarized and releasing the excess of that which each has in abundance by nature of intelligent energy, that is, negative intuitive, positive physical energies as you may call them. This energy transfer being blocked only if one or both entities have fear of possession or of being possessed, of desiring possession or desiring being possessed. The other green ray possibility is that of one entity offering green ray energy, the other not offering energy of the universal love energy, this resulting in a blockage of energy for the one not green ray, thus increasing frustration or appetite, the green ray being polarizing slightly towards service to others. The blue ray energy transfer is somewhat rare among your people at this time, but is of great aid due to energy transfers involved in becoming able to express the self without reservation or fear. The indigo ray transfer is extremely rare among your people. This is the sacramental portion of the body complex whereby contact may be made through violet ray with intelligent infinity. No blockages may occur at these latter two levels due to the fact that if both entities are not ready for this energy, it is not visible and neither transfer nor blockage may take place. It is as though the distributor were removed from a powerful engine. Questioner, could you define sexual energy transfer and expand upon its meaning, please? Ra, I am Ra. Energy transfer implies the release of potential energies across, shall we say, a potentiated space. The sexual energy transfers occur due to the polarizations of two mind-body-spirit complexes, each of which have some potential difference one to the other. The nature of the transfer of energy or of the blockage of this energy is then a function of the interaction of these two potentials. In the cases where transfer takes place, you may liken this to a circuit being closed. You may also see this activity, as all experiential activities, as the creator experiencing itself. Questioner, could this then be the primal mechanism for the creator to experience itself? Ra, I am Ra. This is not a proper term. Perhaps the adjectives would be one appropriate way of the creator knowing itself, for in each interaction, no matter what the distortion, the creator is experiencing itself. The bisexual knowing of the creator by itself has the potential for two advantages. Firstly, in the green ray activated being there is the potential for a direct and simple analog of what you may call joy, the spiritual or metaphysical nature which exists in intelligent energy. This is a great aid to comprehension of the truer nature of beingness. The other potential advantage of bisexual reproductive acts is the possibility of a sacramental understanding or connection, shall we say, with a gateway to intelligent infinity, for with appropriate preparation, work in what you may call magic may be done and experiences of intelligent infinity may be had. The positively oriented individuals concentrating upon this method of reaching intelligent infinity, then, through the seeking or the act of will, are able to direct this infinite intelligence to the work these entities desire to do, whether it be knowledge of service or ability to heal or whatever service to others is desired. These are two advantages of this particular method of the creator experiencing itself. As we have said before, the corollary of the strength of this particular energy transfer is that it opens the door, shall we say, to the individual mind-body-spirit complex's desire to serve in an infinite number of ways another self, thus polarizing towards positive. Questioner, can you expand somewhat on the concept that this action not only allows the creator to know itself better but also creates, in our density, an offspring or makes available the pathway for another entity to enter this density? Ra, I am Ra. As we have previously said, the sexual energy transfers include the red ray transfer, which is random and which is a function of the second density attempt to grow, to survive, shall we say. This is a proper function of the sexual interaction. The offspring, as you call the incarnated entity, takes on the mind-body complex opportunity offered by this random act or event called the fertilization of egg by seed, which causes an entity to have the opportunity to then enter this density as an incarnate entity. This gives the two who are engaged in this bisexual reproductive energy transfer the potential for great service in this area of the nurturing of the small experienced entity as it gains in experience. It shall be of interest at this point to note that there is always the possibility of using these opportunities to polarize towards the negative. And this has been aided by the gradual building up over many thousands of years of social complex distortions which create a tendency towards confusion, shall we say, or baffling of the service to others aspect of this energy transfer and subsequent opportunities for service to other selves. Questioner, if a sexual energy transfer occurs in green ray, and I am assuming in this case that there is no red ray energy transfer, does this mean it is impossible for this particular transfer to include fertilization and the birthing of an entity? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. There is always the red ray energy transfer due to the nature of the body complex. The random result of this energy transfer will be as it will be, as a function of the possibility of fertilization at a given time in a given pairing of entities, each entity being undistorted in any vital sense by the yellow or orange ray energies. Thus the gift, shall we say, being given freely, no payment being requested either of the body, of the mind, or of the spirit. The green ray is one of complete universality of love. This is a giving without expectation of return. Questioner: I was wondering if there was some principle behind the fact that a sexual union does not necessarily lead to fertilization. I'm not interested in the chemical or physical principles of it. I'm interested in whether or not there is some metaphysical principle that leads to the couple having a child or not, or is it purely random? Ra, I am Ra. This is random within certain limits. If an entity has reached the seniority whereby it chooses the basic structure of the life experience, this entity may then choose to incarnate in a physical complex which is not capable of reproduction. Thus we find some entities which have chosen to be unfertile. Other entities, through free will, make use of various devices to ensure non-fertility. Except for these conditions, the condition is random. Questioner: Thank you. In the previous material you mentioned magnetic attraction. Would you define and expand upon that term? Ra, I am Ra. We used the term to indicate that in your bisexual natures there is that which is of polarity. This polarity may be seen to be variable according to the, shall we say, male-female polarization of each entity, be each entity biologically male or female. Thus you may see the magnetism which two entities with the appropriate balance, male-female versus female-male polarity, meeting and thus feeling the attraction which polarized forces will exert, one upon the other. This is the strength of the bisexual mechanism. It does not take an active will to decide to feel attraction for one who is oppositely polarized sexually. It will occur in an inevitable sense, giving the free flow of energy a proper, shall we say, avenue. This avenue may be blocked by some distortion toward a belief condition stating to the entity that this attraction is not desired. However, the basic mechanism functions as simply as would, shall we say, the magnet in the iron. Questioner: We have what seems to be an increasing number of entities incarnate here now who have what is called a homosexual orientation. Could you explain and expand upon that concept? Ra, I am Ra. Entities of this condition experience a great deal of distortion due to the fact that they have experienced many incarnations as biological male and as biological female. This would not suggest what you call homosexuality in an active phase were it not for the difficult vibratory condition of your planetary sphere. There is what you may call great or infringement among your crowded urban areas in your more populous countries, as you call portions of your planetary surface. Under these conditions the confusions will occur. Questioner: Why does density of population create these confusions? Ra, I am Ra. The bisexual reproductive urge has as its goal, not only the simple reproductive function, but more especially the desire to serve others being awakened by this activity. In an overcrowded situation where each mind-body-spirit complex is under constant bombardment from other selves, it is understandable that those who are especially sensitive would not feel the desire to be of service to other selves. This would also increase the probability of a lack of desire or a blockage of the red ray reproductive energy. In an uncrowded atmosphere, this same entity would, through the stimulus of feeling the solitude about it, then have much more desire to seek out someone to whom it may be of service, thus regularizing the sexual reproductive function. Questioner: Roughly how many previous incarnations would a male entity in this incarnation have had in the past as a female to have a highly homosexual orientation in this incarnation? Ra, I am Ra. If an entity has had roughly 65% of its incarnations in the sexual biological body complex, the opposite polarity to its present body complex, this entity is vulnerable to infringement of your urban areas and may perhaps become of what you call an homosexual nature. It is to be noted at this juncture that although it is much more difficult, it is possible in this type of association for an entity to be of great service to another in fidelity and sincere green ray love of a non-sexual nature, thus adjusting or lessening the distortions of its sexual impairment. Questioner: Is there an imprint occurring on the DNA coding of an entity so that sexual biases are imprinted due to early sexual experiences? Ra, I am Ra. This is partially correct. Due to the nature of solitary sexual experiences, it is in most cases unlikely that what you call masturbation has an imprinting effect upon later experiences. This is similarly true with some of the encounters which might be seen as homosexual among those of this age group. These are often, instead, innocent exercises in curiosity. However, it is quite accurate that the first experience in which the mind-body-spirit complex is intensely involved will indeed imprint upon the entity for that life experience a set of preferences. Questioner: Does the Orion group use this as a gateway to impress upon entities preferences which could be of a negative polarization? Ra, I am Ra. Just as we of the Confederation attempt to beam our love and light whenever given the opportunity, including sexual opportunities, so the Orion group will use an opportunity if it is negatively oriented or if the individual is negatively oriented. Questioner: is there any emotional bias that has nothing to do with male-female sexual polarity that can create sexual energy buildup in an entity? Ra: I am Ra. The sexual energy buildup is extremely unlikely to occur without sexual bias upon the part of the entity. Perhaps we did not understand your question, but it seems obvious that it would take an entity with the potential for sexual activity to experience a sexual energy buildup. Questioner: I was thinking more of the possibility of the Orion group influencing certain members of the Third Reich who I have read reports of having sexual gratification from the observation of the gassing and killing of entities in the gas chambers. Ra: I am Ra. We shall repeat, these entities had the potential for sexual energy buildup. The choice of stimulus is certainly the choice of the entity. In the case of which you speak, these entities were strongly polarized orange ray, thus finding the energy blockage of power over others, the putting to death being the ultimate power over others, this then being expressed in a sexual manner. Though solitary. In this case the desire would continue unabated and be virtually unquenchable. You will find, if you observe the entire spectrum of sexual practices among your peoples, that there are those who experience such gratification from domination over others, either from rape or from other means of domination. In each case this is an example of energy blockage which is sexual in its nature. Questioner: would the Orion group be able, then, to impress on entities this orange ray effect? Is this the way that this came about? If we go back to the beginning of third density, there must be a primal cause of this. Ra: I am Ra. The cause of this is not Orion. It is the free choice of your peoples. This is somewhat difficult to explain. We shall attempt. The sexual energy transfers and blockages are more a manifestation or example of that which is more fundamental than the other way about. Therefore, as your peoples became open to the concepts of bellicosity and the greed of ownership, these various distortions then began to filter down through the tree of mind into body complex expressions, the sexual expression being basic to that complex. Thus these sexual energy blockages, though Orion influenced and intensified, are basically the product of the beingness chosen freely by your peoples. This will be the final question unless we may speak further upon this question to clarify, or answer any short queries before we close. Questioner: I just need to know then if this works through the racial memory and infects the entire population in some way? Ra: I am Ra. The racial memory contains all that has been experienced. Thus there is some, shall we say, contamination even of the sexual, this showing mostly in your own culture as the various predispositions to adversary relationships, or, as you call them, marriages, rather than the free giving one to another in the love and the light of the infinite Creator. Questioner: that was precisely the point that I was trying to make. Thank you very much. I do not wish to overtire the instrument, so I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Ra: I am Ra. Please be aware that this instrument is somewhat fatigued. The channel is very clear. However, we find the vital energy low. We do not wish to deplete the instrument. However, there is, shall we say, an energy exchange that we feel an honor duty to offer when this instrument opens itself. Therefore, counsel we this instrument to attempt to assess the vital energies carefully before offering itself as open channel. All is well. You are conscientious. I am Ra. I leave this instrument and you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai. The Law of One, Book 2, Session 32. February 27, 1981. Ra: I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner: we will now continue with the material from the day before yesterday. The subject is how sexual polarity acts as a catalyst in evolution and how to best make use of this catalyst. Going back to that material, I will fill in a few gaps that we possibly do not understand too well at this point. Can you tell me the difference between orange and yellow ray activation? I am going to work up from the red ray right on through the violet. We have covered red ray, so I would like to ask now what the difference is between yellow and orange ray activation? Ra: I am Ra. The orange ray is that influence or vibratory pattern wherein the mind-body-spirit expresses its power on an individual basis. Thus power over individuals may be seen to be orange ray. This ray has been quite intense among your peoples on an individual basis. You may see in this ray the treating of other selves as non-entities, slaves, or chattel, thus giving other selves no status whatever. The yellow ray is a focal and very powerful ray and concerns the entity in relation to, shall we say, groups, societies, or large numbers of mind-body-spirit complexes. This orange, we correct ourselves, this yellow ray vibration is at the heart of bellicose actions in which one group of entities feels the necessity and right of dominating other groups of entities and bending their wills to the wills of the masters. The negative path, as we'd call it, uses a combination of the yellow ray and the orange ray in its polarization patterns. These rays, used in a dedicated fashion, will bring about a contact with intelligent infinity. The usual nature of sexual interaction, if one is yellow or orange in primary vibratory patterns, is one of blockage and then insatiable hunger due to the blockage. When there are two selves vibrating in this area, the potential for polarization through the sexual interaction is begun, one entity experiencing the pleasure of humiliation and slavery or bondage. The other experiencing the pleasure of mastery and control over another entity. This way a sexual energy transfer of a negative polarity is experienced. Questioner, from the material that you transmitted February 17th you stated, in third ray there are two possibilities. Firstly, if both vibrate in third ray there will be a mutually strengthening energy transfer. What color is third ray in this material? Ra, I am Ra. The ray we were speaking of in that material should be properly the green ray or fourth ray. Questioner, so I should change that third to fourth or green? Ra, this is correct. Please continue to scan for errors having to do with numbering, as you call them, as this concept is foreign to us and we must translate, if you will, when using numbers. This is an ongoing weakness of this contact due to the difference between our ways and yours. Your aid is appreciated. Questioner, thank you. I believe for the time being we have amply covered green ray, so I am going to skip over green ray and go to blue ray. Could you tell me the difference that occurs between green ray and blue ray with the emphasis on blue ray? Ra, I am Ra. With the green ray transfer of energy you now come to the great turning point sexually as well as in each other mode of experience. The green ray may then be turned outward, the entity then giving rather than receiving. The first giving beyond green ray is the giving of acceptance or freedom, thus allowing the recipient of blue ray energy transfer the opportunity for a feeling of being accepted, thus freeing that other self to express itself to the giver of this ray. It will be noted that once green ray energy transfer has been achieved by two mind-body spirits in mating, the further rays are available without both entities having the necessity to progress equally. Thus a blue ray vibrating entity or indigo ray vibrating entity whose other ray vibrations are clear may share that energy with the green ray other self, thus acting as catalyst for the continued learn teaching of the other self. Until another self reaches green ray, such energy transfer through the rays is not possible. Questioner, what is the difference between indigo and blue ray transfer? Ra, I am Ra. The indigo ray is the ray of, shall we say, awareness of the creator as self, thus one whose indigo ray vibrations have been activated can offer the energy transfer of creator to creator. This is the beginning of the sacramental nature of what you call your bisexual reproductive act. It is unique in bearing the allness, the wholeness, the unity in its offering to other self. Questioner, what is the difference between violet ray and the others? Ra, I am Ra. The violet ray, just as the red ray, is constant in the sexual experience. Its experience by other self may be distorted or completely ignored or not apprehended by other self. However, the violet ray, being the sum and substance of the mind-body-spirit complex, surrounds and informs any action by a mind-body-spirit complex. Questioner, do the energy transfers of this nature occur in the 5th, 6th, and 7th density all the rays? Ra, I am Ra. The rays, as you understand them, have such a different meaning in the next density and the next and so forth that we must answer your query in the negative. Energy transfers only take place in 4th, 5th, and 6th densities. These are still of what you would call a polarized nature. However, due to the ability of these densities to see the harmonies between individuals, these entities choose those mates which are harmonious, thus allowing constant transfer of energy and the propagation of the body complexes which each density uses. The process is different in the 5th and the 6th density than you may understand it. However, it is in these cases still based upon polarity. In the 7th density there is not this particular energy exchange as it is unnecessary to recycle body complexes. Questioner, I am assuming we have on Earth today and have had in the past 4th, 5th, and 6th density wanderers. As they come into incarnation in the physical of this density for a period as a wanderer, what types of polarizations with respect to these various rays do they find affecting them? Ra, I am Ra. I believe I grasp the thrust of your query. Please ask further if this answer is not sufficient. Fourth density wanderers, of which there are not many, will tend to choose those entities which seem to be full of love or in need of love. There is the great probability of entities making errors in judgment due to the compassion with which other selves are viewed. The fifth density wanderer is one who is not tremendously affected by the stimulus of the various rays of other self and in its own way offers itself when a need is seen. Such entities are not likely to engage in the, shall we say, custom of your peoples called marriage and are very likely to feel an aversion to childbearing and child-raising due to the awareness of the impropriety of the planetary vibrations relative to the harmonious vibrations of the density of light. The sixth density, whose means of propagation you may liken to what you call fusion, is likely to refrain, to a great extent, from the bisexual reproductive programming of the bodily complex and instead seek out those with whom the sexual energy transfer is of the complete fusion nature insofar as this is possible in manifestation in third density. Questioner, can you expand a little bit on what you mean by complete fusion nature? Ra, I am Ra. The entire creation is of the one creator. Thus the division of sexual activity into simply that of the bodily complex is an artificial division, all things thusly being seen as sexual equally. The mind, the body, and the spirit, all of which are part of the polarity of the entity. Thus sexual fusion may be seen with or without what you may call sexual intercourse to be the complete melding of the mind, the body, and the spirit in what feels to be a constant orgasm, shall we say, of joy and delight each in the other's beingness. Questioner, would many wanderers of these densities have considerable problems with respect to incarnation in the third density because of this different orientation? Ra, I am Ra. The probability of such problems, as you call them, due to sixth density incarnating in third is rather large. It is not necessarily a problem if you would call it thusly. It depends upon the unique orientation of each mind-body-spirit complex having this situation or placement of vibratory relativities. Questioner, can you give me an idea how the different colors? This is a difficult question to ask. I'm having trouble finding any words. What I'm trying to get at is how the different colors originate as the functions for the different expressions in consciousness. I don't know if this question is sufficient. Ra, I am Ra. This question is sufficiently clear for us to attempt explanation of what, as you have observed, is not easily grasped material for the intellectual mind. The nature of vibration is such that it may be seen as having mathematically straight or narrow steps. These steps may be seen as having boundaries. Within each boundary there are infinite gradations of vibration or color. However, as one approaches a boundary, an effort must be made to cross that boundary. These colors are a simplistic way of expressing the boundary divisions of your density. There is also the time-space analogy which may be seen as the color itself in a modified aspect. Questioner, thank you. Is it possible for an entity in third density physical to vary across the entire band of colors, or is the entity pretty well zeroed in on one color? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the last full question of this working. Please restate for clarity. Questioner, I meant, was it possible for a green ray person who is primarily a green ray activation to vary on both sides of the green ray in a large or a small amount in regards to energy activation, or is he primarily green ray? Ra, I am Ra. We grasped the newness of material requested by you. It was unclear, for we thought we had covered this material. The portion covered is this: the green ray activation is always vulnerable to the yellow or orange ray of possession, this being largely yellow ray but often coming into orange ray. Fear of possession, desire for possession, fear of being possessed, desire to be possessed, these are the distortions which will cause the deactivation of green ray energy transfer. The new material is this: once the green ray has been achieved, the ability of the entity to enter blue ray is immediate and is only awaiting the efforts of the individual. The indigo ray is opened only through considerable discipline and practice, largely having to do with acceptance of self, not only as the polarized and balanced self but as the creator, as an entity of infinite worth. This will begin to activate the indigo ray. Questioner, thank you. Ra, I am Ra. Do you have any brief queries before we close? Questioner, I think that anything I have would be too long, so I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to make the contact better? Ra, I am Ra. All is well. We caution not only this instrument but each to look well to the vital energies necessary for non-depletion of the instrument and the contact level. You are most conscientious, my friends. We shall be with you. I leave you now in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so that was the end of session 32. So if you had the chakra centers in front of you, so you can see how Ra was talking about moving through densities, almost like the evolution of the soul as we move through the chakra systems, and how we are currently in the green ray center. And you can kind of see how in the lower densities you are in yellow and orange. He didn't talk a lot about red, but you can kind of see how that's very primal when you're just trying to see the, reproduce, and you can see the animal kingdom just trying to reproduce instinctively. And a lot of times the way it happens is through domination, through the other sex to reproduce. And you can kind of see that still in a lot of the second density creatures that we have here on Earth. And we are just now in the green center. So we're in the green heart chakra. And as you move up through the densities, through fourth, fifth, and sixth density, you go through blue, indigo, and violet, which ends up being in the seventh density, which basically would mean that sex changes. And it basically means the transfer of energy in service to others when you get into those densities. So he also talks about the wanderers. Those that are, there's very few in fourth density, but fifth and sixth density wanderers that have reincarnated here in third density. And for me, who I believe to be a wanderer myself, Ra talks about how when you're in those densities, it's about transfer of energy. It's not about reproduction and making babies and things like that. You're in a different energy. And this is something I understood such at a young age, and I didn't really understand why at the time. But when I listen to the raw material, it makes more sense to me, or I'm able to explain it. And one of those things is, I'm in my 40s now, and I do not have children, and I don't have a desire to have children. And I knew not to have children, like when I was 5, when I was very young. I just knew that wasn't for me, and that's not what I'm supposed to do, because I'm not here to advance through third density into fourth density and having children and things like that. I just felt that I shouldn't. And it was hard to explain to people why I didn't want children, because I didn't really have a reason to give them except for the knowing of not to. And it didn't make sense to anybody. And they always said that I would change my mind. And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm not changing my mind. But if you haven't gone through an awakening and have a knowing, this is a concept that is still, even today, hard to explain to other people why you're not having children, and just having a knowing not to have them. And because society, even right now, when you don't have children, people look at you like, there's something wrong. So it's just, I kind of have to brush a lot of that off, even still today, because people still think that I'm able to have children or should. And it's just been something I've been kind of fighting my whole life. And I just have to kind of almost brush away from those people, because I will never be able to explain to them that I'm a wanderer, or I believe to be a wanderer, and why I don't need to have children. And another thing that I was able to relate to and really understand when Ra repeated it is when you get into the higher densities, you have a certain understanding basically about what love is and how it changes when you move through the densities. And the way I can explain it is when you're in the higher densities, you don't really require sexual acts to feel love. You can kind of see that very, very definitely in 3D. But when you're in fifth and sixth density, it's my understanding that, and I feel a little bit now, I can feel love by myself. It's almost like the feeling of being in love with love itself. And it's hard to explain how you have bursting love and you feel like your heart chakra is wide open, and you don't have a good reason to have that feeling when you're not in a relationship, or you're not ever having sex. And sex really doesn't seem very important in order to get that feeling. So it's very personal. Sorry, I'm getting very personal with you guys, but it's something hard to explain to other people. Like if you're someone, and I've met several other people that I believe are wanderers as well, and they're single and they've never had kids, and they're not lacking in the feeling of love in their lives, and it's for that reason. It's almost as if we have a resonance of understanding of what that feels like, and you can see it in a lot of other people that are very comfortable with themselves, that are very awakened, that feel love, and they don't need to have a sexual acting partner to have those feelings, which is what Ra was trying to talk about a little bit in the end there. So sorry I got a little personal with you guys on that one, but I wanted to give you insight about, why those of you that are believed to be wanderers do not have children and don't feel a need to have children for those reasons. So I hope that gives everyone a little bit of insight. I'd love to read your comments in the comment section below the videos, and I'll try to read as many of them as I can. But let's move on to part 4 with the raw material. I'll see you guys in the next video.